The 2024 KTM 300SX is one of the most interesting bikes in motocross right now. It was brand new last year. For 2024, it has some minor updates, some new graphics, and a retail price of $9,399. We had a lot of fun on this bike last year. We're excited to break down all we know about the 2024 300SX in this video. The 2024 KTM 300SX is a lot of fun on the track. This is a first-year model bike in 2023. KTM had never made a 300 motocross bike before that. Now it's back for 2024. Double thumbs up from the MXA Wrecking Crew. We have a lot of fun riding on this bike. It's got the same bottom end as the KTM 250SX, but it's got a bigger top end. It's got the 72 by 72 mil bore and stroke. So 300 cc's of cubic centimeters of power on this KTM 300SX. Super smooth on the track though, because of the electronic equipped power valve, electronic opening and closing, smooth power valve, and also fuel injected. So you do premix the bike, do premix the gas before you pour it in the fuel tank, but it is fuel injected. You don't have to mess with main jets, air screws, pilot jets. You don't have to mess with any of that. It knows what elevation you're at. It knows the temperature just by starting the bike up. So electric start, electric power valve, fuel injection. Kind of mind-blowing to have a motocross bike, two-stroke with all those features, but it's pretty fun and it's actually very smooth because of that. The prior model KTMs, we talked about it before, more of a harder hit, more of a lug and then snap and go, hard hit into the power, where this 300 is super smooth off the bottom end and a great lugability. It's easy just to roll on the throttle. You don't have to clutch it as much because of that electronic power valve is opening the exhaust ports at the exact time that you need it to. So this bike is very, very interesting. It does have a rev limiter though, and that is something that we're not used to. We've ridden this bike for a year now. We got the 24 edition. The only updates for the 2024 bike are similar to what we talked about in our 450 2024 video on the KTM 450. It's the suspension. Suspension settings have been changed, but they're supposed to feel the same in the stock settings, but once you make adjustments to the clickers on the compression and on the rebound, fork and shock, you're able to fine tune the settings better now, where it's not such a big jump with one click. So last year, KTM and WP thought that the settings were a little bit too drastic when you made changes to the clickers. Now they tried to hone that in a little bit so you can fine tune the suspension. And that's really the only change on this bike now. So the big question is, did KTM update the ECU on this new 300SX for 2024? The bad news is it's the same ECU as it was last year. They didn't make updates to it. However, Twisted Development, Jamie Ellis, he's been working on the 300SX, coming up with new maps for it. He has been able to crack the code into the Continental ECU that comes on the new generation two-strokes from KTM. So I haven't actually ridden with his map yet, so we do need to try that out before I can relay the feedback on how it works on the track. But talking to Jamie this morning, he says it's a little more cleaner revving. He's able to dial in the power valve to fine-tune when it opens and closes exactly with the throttle position. And he also says it's just more of a fun map, a little bit easier to go ride on and pull smoother through the RPMs. So I'm excited to try that hopefully soon. I also talked to KTM. They didn't make any structural changes to the ECU for 2024. The only update they did make though, if you owned this bike last year and you noticed a wire crossed or your fuel pump got unplugged or something oddball happened, you would throw a code on the hour meter up here on the triple clamps. But once you threw that code, then the bike the light would stay on like there's an issue even after you fix the problem. They have fixed that to where if you plug the fuel pump back in, the light should go out, so it should be a little bit easier and you won't have to take it to a dealer or somebody who can reset that for you. Also, talk to KTM. It sounds like there might be an updated map for this bike coming soon in the next month or two. So if you wait a couple months to buy a bike, I'm sure it'll have that updated map, or you'll be able to get that from your dealership if you buy this bike here soon. Why would you want to buy a KTM 300 SX and add it to your fleet? Well, you can't race this bike in AMA events like Loretta's in the 450 class. You can't race this bike at the AMA Nationals at Washougal coming up in a couple weeks. I can't race this bike in Supercross because of the 300cc displacement. You have to race the KTM 250 two-stroke at Washougal, at the Nationals, at Loretta's, and in any AMA events where 450 four-strokes and 250 two-strokes are regulated. However, this weekend here at Glen Helen, Saturday at the Glen race, you can race this in the 450 class. Most local races, you can race it in the 450 class. Vet riders have a lot of fun on this bike. In the vet classes where they aren't keeping an eye on the displacement numbers, and World Two-Stroke Championships coming up in April, you can race this bike there as well. So the 300 SX, it's a ton of fun to ride, but why should you buy this bike? Super strong lugability coming out of the corners. Comparing it to the 250 two-stroke that we rode last year, we had a Husky 250 two-stroke. We did a comparison video between the 300 and the TC 250. TC 250, not quite as fast, not as much torque coming out of corners. You can ride the 250 much harder though, which arguably will make you actually faster lap time wise and maybe even better in a long moto. For me, the 250 two-stroke isn't a bad bike and it's still extremely fast. This 300 allows you to lug through the corners. You don't have to clutch very much to get it into the RPM range where it likes to ride, and it just overall makes for a lot of fun on the track. So we know a lot of people who really like this bike. It's kind of the same thing when you compare it to a why would you want a 125 two-stroke? Because it's fun. Maybe it's not competitive in the 250 class, but it's ultra fun to have in your garage. And if you have the funds to go buy one, I think you'd be really impressed with this bike. Talking points about the 300 is the engine and just how smooth and fun it is to ride, but it also comes with two maps. It doesn't have quick shift and it doesn't have traction control, which you find on the KTM 450, but it does have map 1 and map 2, a white map and a green map. Map 1, the power valve only opens 80%, which detunes the power just slightly and makes it a little bit easier to ride. Map 2, the green map, opens it wide open and gives you all the power that this 300 SX makes. Comparing it on the dyno, the green map, map 2, peaks out at 55 horsepower, which is almost 5 horsepower below the KTM 450, but it actually is faster than the Suzuki RMZ 450. So peak horsepower, not quite as strong as the KTM, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Honda horsepower numbers, but 300 SX, it's a two-stroke. It's a little more loose than the 450 four-strokes, so that 55 horsepower is plenty strong. Comparing it to the first map, map 1, that only peaks out at 54 horsepower, so just below, right behind that 55 number that map 2 has, but a little bit detuned, a little bit easier to ride. Comparing that to the 250 two-stroke dyno charts, the 250 two-stroke peaks out at 52 horsepower on the dyno, so that's 3 horsepower off this 300 SX. And where you really notice it though is coming out of the corners, just that lugability and the initial torque that you have on this 300 SX. Other notes, this bike does come with the new generation KTM platform. It was brand new in 2023, second year for 2024. Same frame, no changes made there. Suspension, like I mentioned, just a minor change to the clickers and the rebound. But this frame is very rigid. You'll hear it from us and you'll hear it from any other riders who are trying out the new platform from KTM. It takes some time to break in. This 300SX will get a lot better after the 10-hour mark, and the forks will break in after the first couple hours as well. The WP XACT air forks are built to the tightest tolerances, so the seals do take some time to break in and feel a little more comfortable on the track. Our test riders felt a little bit loose in the front end today, felt a little bit harsh in some of the bumps, but we only have 3 hours on this bike right now, so it's still brand new, still fresh, and we know from experience on last year's bike that it gets better with time. I'd say the 454 stroke, it takes a solid 10 hours. This 300 will feel a lot more comfortable after the 5 and 6 hour mark. Because it's a 2-stroke, because it's a little more free revving than the 454 stroke with all that engine braking that it has, the 2-stroke power band does help this bike free up a little bit and does help it make it more rider friendly on the track. So be sure to take time to ride your 300SX and put some hours on it before you get too worried about the suspension settings, before you take your air forks and swap them out for a spring conversion kit. These WP XACT air forks, I really like them. You've also seen pro riders like Aaron Plessinger, even Cooper Webb, been running them on their 450s at the AMA Nationals this year, and it's pretty interesting. Obviously, Cooper Webb's not racing anymore with KTM. They parted ways, but pretty cool to see him and Aaron Plessinger running the air fork. Highlighting a few things that we like and don't like about this bike. The like list: Brembo clutch, Brembo brakes, best in class. Can't complain about those. We also like the twin air filter that comes stock in the 300SX and all of the KTM models. Super easy to get in and out of this bike. KTM also, they didn't give us a vented airbox cover, but they usually give you a vented airbox cover from the dealership that comes with. Today we rode it with the closed off airbox cover. This 300 is so fast. Running the closed off airbox cover is great, but if you do want a little more snap coming out of the corners, which you probably don't on this bike, but if you do, they do give you a vented airbox cover for that. Dunlop tires, it's got the MX33 tires on here, but complaining about a few things. The spokes still come loose on KTM models. They didn't make any updates to that. Especially keep an eye on them the first few times you ride them. The first moto you do, come in, check the spokes. Second moto, check the spokes. After that, keep a close eye on them, especially for those first few break-in hours. But even long down the road, if you're riding long, hard motos, the spokes will come loose, especially right next to the rim lock. Also, sprocket bolts, something you got to keep an eye on, especially while they're still setting and breaking in with the bike. Be sure to keep an eye on the bleeder screws for the forks. Bleed your air from both the compression side and the rebound side, the air and the valving side, to make sure you have the forks working at proper temperature and proper pressure. Also, be sure to check your air forks often. That is the biggest downside of air forks, is they do pump up if you leave your bike in the sun, especially your forks. So just like your tires, if you leave your tires out in the sun, you're not under an easy up, they'll go up. Same thing with the air forks, so keep an eye on that throughout the day. WP will give you an air pump with your new bike at the dealership, so keep an eye on it. But thank you guys for watching this video. We've learned a lot about the 300SX. We got a comparison video on our YouTube channel from last year, the bike that's generally the same as this one. We also got articles in the magazine and on our website, so be sure to check us out there. If there's anything more you want to know about this bike, let us know in the comments. We'll either catch you in the comments or we'll catch you in a future article with updates about this bike. Thanks for watching. Check out motocrossactionmag.com for more of what we got going on, and we'll see you in the next video.